Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to grab our paints, our decoupage medium, any kind of old papers that you have, and if you have a wooden frame, get that out too, because I'm going to show you how to emboss on a very simple wooden frame. For our collage frame, we're going to be working on a very inexpensive wood frame. You can get these for about $1 at your local craft store, and I have printed out on my inkjet printer a page that has a lot of old words. I happen to have a book that is over 100 years old that I use whenever I want old writing. So you could use a sheet of sheet music or just whatever you have. Like I said, an inkjet printer works just fine, and you're going to decoupage this down onto the surface of the wood. Make sure that it's completely dry, and you don't have to be real precise. You can see I've just kind of torn the strips of paper. So the next step would be to sand the edges with a sanding block, and this is going to clean up those edges and tear away the excess paper. And now that I have all my edges sanded and the inside sanded, this is really where the fun begins. So we're going to just slap on some color, and you'll want to choose a color palette, you know, that matches your decor. I'm going to be using this, it's called Peony Pink, and it's going to turn kind of an orangey color when I get the next layer put on it. Just kind of slap that on pretty haphazard there. And I've got a little bit of turquoise that I'm going to put on. When you do mixed media art, I always say that it goes through kind of an ugly stage. So you're gonna have to work through that. Don't give up on it. I know that these couple colors look kind of odd together right now, but when working with mixed media, it's all about layers and layers and collaging and just kind of letting your art be free. Notice here that I have put on the paint rather thin, so it's a little transparent, and make sure that you can see some of your words pop up through. You want to make sure that you're going to see whatever image or parts of images that you've decoupaged down onto your wood. So we're going to move on to the next step, which is going in with a color wash, and I'm using a butterscotch color wash, and this is a dye that's kind of water activated. You can do it two ways. You can spray it directly onto your project, or you can spray it onto your palette. I'm going to spray it onto my palette and then just dip my brush in the water and just kind of put it on over the top. And you can already see that it's changing the color of the paint that I put on underneath of it, and that's good. That's what I want. And since we're putting a yellow over some of the blue, you're going to get kind of a sagey green color, and then just like I said with the pink, it's turning kind of an orangey color, which goes really well with the color palette that I use in my house. This dries pretty quick, and of course if you get it too thick in some areas, you can wipe it off, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wipe a little bit of it off, kind of distress it a little bit with a paper towel. Just a little bit here and there. Whoops. I tore up a little piece right there, so let me put this back down. If you miss any of the instructions that I'm giving you today, remember that you can go to my website at lindapetersondesigns.com and get all of the instructions for today's project or any project that I featured on my show. Now we're going to move on to the dimensional step. And to add dimension, I'm going to be using this molding paste, and I've put a little bit on my palette right here. You're also going to need a credit card or a room key that you forgot to turn in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my plastic stencil here, and I'm just going to lay it over the area that I want to add the dimension to, and I'm just going to kind of squeegee this on. The cool thing about this is this modeling paste, I'm not adding any color to it right now, but it will pick up some of the dye that is underneath that we put on before, and it will kind of turn it a yellowy color, which is kind of cool. And you'll see that start to develop as it dries. You're going to do this in all the areas that you want a little bit of dimension. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can miss some areas. And in fact, you do want a little bit of texture. You kind of want it, you don't want it perfect. Because when we come in with the antiquing step, it'll really highlight those imperfections and make it look really, really cool. And so when I remove it, that's what you get. Isn't that cool? The molding paste is completely dry, and just like I said, it's actually lifted up some of that dye color, that yellow dye that I put in there, and it's tinted it a little bit. I've also gone over this with another coat of the decoupage medium, and it is completely dry. So now we're going to move on to the antiquing step, and I have a bit of, this is burnt umber. It's just a thicker bodied acrylic paint, and we're going to go over the entire surface and paint this on. Pretty liberal, but kind of slap it on at the same time. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to put it on thicker over the area that I stenciled and gave some dimension to. I know it seems a little odd after we've put all this work into creating our background that we're covering it over with brown paint, but you'll see that it really gives it a cool effect. If you don't want it distressed and antique looking, of course you don't have to do this step. I'm going to speed up the drying process with a little bit of heat here. Because I'm working with a decoupage medium that is water resistant, it's going to allow me to come back over with a wet cloth and take away some of the paint that in areas that I don't want it. And that's the reason why I use that layer of decoupage medium between my base layers and this antiquing layer. Let me grab a baby wipe here, and we can come back and start to rub away some of the brown paint. Got to put a little bit of elbow grease in this for it to work. Keep on removing as much of the antiquing layer that you like, and when you get the look that you like, you're going to finish with another layer of Collage Podge, add a photo, and sit back and enjoy what you've just made.